Welcome to the Juice Consumer Direct Podcast. I'm Nate Clegg, and I'm here with Jacob Thorpe and Carson Poppinger. We here at Squeeze do our best to answer a lot of the questions that we seem to get from our clients and vendors alike. And today we're going to talk about sales culture. And people have actually asked me about this. How do we recruit so much talent? How do we retain so much talent? And frankly, I've been here about a year now, and it is significantly different at Squeeze than the other places I've been. The sales culture is absolutely different. So my question to you guys, who are longtime Squeezers, why? Why is it different?
Yeah, just a little background. I've been at Squeeze for almost 10 years, almost a decade, and I started out on the sales floor. And certainly, Carson, you can definitely attest to this, but there's been a lot of growth and maturation that's happened on the sales side of things on our floor, and culture, agent retention, things like that. What's kind of been the process that you've taken to develop that?
Well, it was an evolution for sure, because for us at least, we started, practically with nothing, kind of bootstrap the operation. So I think starting from where we did, you can take a different path to get where we're at today with, funding and budget and things like that. But, we did the best with what we could. We always had sort of a vision of where we wanted to be with our sales culture, and just trying to, make sure we hire the right people and we focus on the right things. We'll probably talk a lot about our hiring and people processes and things like that in this episode. For one, I think, making sure that everybody's, one thing that's always been important in sales culture for us is having aligned goals with everybody from top to bottom. And I've talked about that with some of our clients. Sometimes they'll ask us, the goals have to be aligned from the agent to the team leader to the manager to the executive. Everybody has the same goals. And whenever you can align goals, you get better output and results because everyone's working toward the same thing. So,
well, I think on that note too, you can align incentives top to bottom. That's something that I think we preach a lot to our sales floor is your goal as founder CEO is to help our newest agent be effective on the phone, right? Because we are a pay for performance company, there's alignment from top to bottom. Our objective is very clear. I'm bought into your success, right? Even, our training and development manager, the things that he's tracking how quickly can we get a new agent hire out of training and bonusing and making money.
Yeah, I was surprised when I heard that, for sure. I think we're in the 80% range of our new employees make bonus, and the sales culture is super important, right? I think it kind of goes without saying, but to highlight it, there's a couple things that you say, Jacob, that are important. One, you have to be able to track everything. You have to know what's happening. And then what you said, Carson, is you have to make sure everybody's aligned. So if you have that proper expectation for everybody, and then there's a clear path to it, that's where success can exist. Without that, sales tank, performance and efforts never are consistent. So it builds consistency really, really well when you guys do all that. And so that's what I've noticed a lot about what you've created, that you've created a situation where these agents can succeed early on and then kind of build on that success.
Something else that I think is really unique with, the way that we do things, and obviously we have a lot of insight into our partners and clients and the way that they run their sales organizations, right? But something that I love about the way that we run things is even from a management and executive team level, there is transparency into what everyone else is doing, and there's accountability. So we're constantly giving an accounting of our stewardship in the business, right? If my responsibility is these 10 accounts, I'm going to report on those 10 accounts daily, and I'm going to be held accountable by my peers. And we're all working towards the same goal. So each of these little pockets that everyone is responsible for all lead to our collective goal. And I think when we're all aligned and helping each other with those pieces of the business that we own, there's that teamwork, that lack of ego that allows us to be way more effective in delivering and taking feedback and applying feedback, because I'm not being protective over my piece. Rather, I'm trying to do everything I can to make this the best piece of the business that I can, with everyone's help. Everyone's helping each other with those different things. So I that's something that I've noticed in the way that we've kind of set up our organization that's trickled down to team leads, agents, and the whole sales floor.
Yeah, I think within like a single business, you'd have maybe one set of metrics, each team's going to be sort of all working on the same product or service offering, things like that, campaign, where we have, 30, 40, 50 different campaigns and projects that are running. They all have their own different nuances to them, data, process, scripting, technology, integrations, all that. And so to be able to stay on top of all those and review them individually and as a team with transparency, it's probably one of the best things we pull off, but something that would be kind of complicated even for just a business just to implement just for their one product. So,
and I'll say, just coming from an outside organization coming to Squeeze, one of the things I noticed very, very early on is the people. The people are really high caliber people on all the teams, going from top to bottom. And I've noticed, like on your account management team or on the ops manager's team for James, you guys have built this talent base and taught them the right way of doing things. There's standard things that need to be done every day. Like you said, like I'm going to be accountable for what I'm doing. I'm going to pay attention to what I'm doing. And because that's there, and then there's been a really good recognition of talent of like, hey, this is going to be a higher performer. Let's get them what they need in order to be successful. And it's absolutely the case here that that's happened. And early on, I imagine it was harder to identify, or even just have, maybe not identify, but have those core pieces that build on each other to the point where we are today. I mean, how was that in the early stages? Like, how did you navigate, hey, I don't have the team I need yet, but how do I build to it?
Yeah, I started to kind of like create almost like personas or, just grouping the reps based on this person reminds me of this person, was sort of like how I kind of looked at it until I could kind of create a profile, for that, the agent that we were looking for, the characteristics they were following. And over time, it's kind of evolved into just knowing like, here's the process to follow and giving them just the process to follow and knowing that like if we hire the right personality, the right with the right motivation, those are the kind of things that ultimately we look for today is, making sure that we bring in someone that is going to, be humble, teachable, coachable. They don't even have to be that experienced. We're really looking for humility and coachability over someone with experience for our team, because then we can train them on our processes. We can teach them the way that we go about it. And as they come in as an agent or a salesperson and then move into like a leadership role, they've been brought up through that process and the way that we do things. Yeah. And, one last thing that I'll add about the sales culture that's always sort of been our goal, and I think that we do really well with today, is when we bring somebody in, I want them to walk into our sales center and look around and feel like, hey, these people could all be my friends. Like I could meet a lot of friends here and make friends. And I think when you're bringing in the right person, you've got to have an environment full of the other similar like-minded people, or else you're going to end up with some fragmentation and some things like that. And, I think our approach is to hire people that have high upside, that are on a path somewhere great. They don't have a lot of experience, but they're teachable and humble and are going to get after it for a while. When they're with us, they're going to perform well. And then they're probably going to either move into a leadership role or they're going to end up in a better position with another company. So we're helping develop them, groom them for something bigger and better.
Yeah. I think you're right. Especially when you're trying to retain talent, if you're retaining them too long or trying to force them in a position, inevitably you look at it and say, well, I need people who are going to last longer. But if your mentality is like what you just said, I'm going to bless these people's lives, I'm going to get them to the point where they're successful, and then I'm going to happily send them along their way because they're going to do something more exciting than what they're doing today. That's a great perspective to have, especially when you expect that to happen, for sure.
That's something that I think is really important. I know, like, at least in like our client services organization, we've always tried to be very transparent with like what our objectives are for the people. And, the perfect marriage is you've got someone whose end goal matches up with like the business's goal, right? And that's perfect. That's not always how it works, But oftentimes if you have someone who's like high skill, high value, and they've got a certain skill set or something that they're interested in, giving them opportunities and being transparent with those opportunities that you're giving them, like, hey, I want to help you develop this skill and get ready for this thing. That's a great way to help them add value to the business and also feel like they're receiving some like self-actualization, some that they're growing, that they're, our client service team is, in my opinion, we've got some really, really talented individuals, and they've all got their own little specialties that they've kind of taken ownership over, right? One might be really great at data analytics. Another one might be really good at onboarding new clients and making sure that the strategies are set the way they need to be. And providing those opportunities to them and ultimately giving them ownership over those is a great way to build a culture where we're investing in our own people and providing them opportunities to grow. And they give a lot more when they can see that you want what's best for them and you want them to reach their goals. Like there's a level of buy-in there that really will improve their work rate and their job satisfaction.
Yeah, they know that they're gaining skills and that whatever they're doing is benefiting the business, but it's also putting them in a position to, grow and learn and develop and get greater skills and higher income potential. And so
early on, that was probably more difficult to do, right?
Yeah.
Because when I look, like I said, 9-10 years ago, there weren't a lot of us that were, providing management or leadership in those. It was kind of you, and we may have had like a floor manager at that time, right? So we were all being pretty scrappy. I mean, there were times where I was hiring or I was running the floor for a period of time, and we were really just doing the best that we could with what we had. But I think those principles that we're talking about, like career pathing and providing opportunities for growth, have always kind of shown through. And all you need is a couple anchor pieces to attract some more people like those people.
Absolutely, yeah.
and you start to see the dynamic shift just a little bit, little by little, little by little.
Yeah. Well, you said anchor pieces, and Carson, you alluded to it too, where like-minded people attract each other, and then you find the right sort of person, they refer their friends. Yeah. And one thing that's been really good about Squeeze is we've created an environment where high performers are uplifted, they've been noticed, and they attract other high performers. And if the expectation is there and the talent's there and they're teachable, like you said, then they'll start building each other up, and that's the expectation, right? And you'll get more people like that consistently. And I would say the other things that we've done that are really, really good is we've even gone as far as making the center look really good, right?
Yeah.
You walk in there and it does not look like it's a sales floor at all. Because, there's obviously cubicles and people will sit there, but it's an open floor plan. It's got kind of that modern tech look to it, right? It's got cool murals on the wall where you give them free lunch on Fridays, all the kind of things that you would see at like a tech company, but for a sales group, right? And to help create that culture of success and thinking big and feeling big. And I know that my responsibilities at the company are attract new clients and bring them in and do the marketing as well. And I know if I can get a client to show up at the center, there's close rates like 75, 80%. If they see it, if they walk the floor, they feel the vibe there, they can see the facility itself. We want people to come in all the time just so they can have that experience, because it's like you said, it's a done deal for sure.
We had an executive for one of the largest mortgage companies really in the country. He came and visited our office, and we did a site visit and kind of had a strategy session together. And he said, the highest praise that I can give you is I don't feel like I need to shower right now. There's a bit of a maybe a stereotype or a connotation with like a sales floor that I think does not apply to what we're doing. But that's, once again, it's taken a lot of time and it's taken a lot of effort.
Well, you talked about the office space and the layout and things like that. And, when we moved into our current office that we're in now, we were laying that out. And I remember we were talking about, we need an area for break room. We need a break area. And we'll throw some tables here, some round tables with some chairs. And I said, I've never, in all the offices we've had, I've never seen anybody sit in the break room and eat lunch. Yeah. Like it just is not a happy place. It's not
they'd leave.
They'd leave. Yeah. They'd go somewhere else. It's just not a fun place to hang out. So I said, I honestly don't think we should do a break room, but if we did one, it's got to be different. It's got to be a little more kind of like a cafe, kind of like have some booth seating where there's booths where they can sit down and they're kind of tucked in a little bit more. Like if you go down in one of these other, like in our office park, they had a break area like that in the basement of one of the buildings. I'm like, if you go down there at any given time and there's people down there, they're sitting in the booth areas. They're not sitting at the tables. Yep. And so we built in a booth area, booth areas, and that's where everybody always sits. Yep. We've got like some USB ports they can plug in, they can charge their phone, they can have lunch, and it gets used. I'm like, otherwise it's a waste of space, so to make it usable, make it functional. And that's just one example, for kind of creating a fun culture environment where people can hang out and be comfortable, really.
And people really do use it all the time, and they use that kind of lounge area that you designed right next to it as well. And we have arcade games. They don't use that a lot, which is okay because they're kind of loud. But the goal was always right to make it a positive, really awesome place. And we also have the best swag out there. That's been part of it too. We have some really good swag. We should probably show it off sometime.
Yeah, I think our hiring's a big piece of maintaining that culture too. I mean, we receive 100 to 200 applications a week, if not more.
Which is crazy for the record.
Yeah. For like 400 or 500. Yeah.
400 to 500?
400 to 500 applications a week. So that's one of the big things I think that people are complaining about across the country right now is staffing these entry-level sales positions where they say we can't hire enough people. And, that's been a strength for us is to get those applications and 400 or 500 a week. And then we can really go through and decide, like who fits their demographic and mold of like what we're hiring for and who's going to be able to come in and be teachable and trainable and excel. And that's definitely a huge part of our success.
We also have some really great referral incentives too. Yeah. A large percentage, I would bet 50% of our new hires are referrals, and their retention, the average sales floor will have like 600% turnover in a year, and we don't even have
8 to 10% a month.
8 to 10% a month is all,
and that's incredibly low. And you guys are right. This angst that people are having with filling these sales roles, entry-level sales roles, people cannot staff them. So the fact that we are having hundreds of applicants, that we're retaining 8 to 10% of them month over month, all of that is
only turning over.
Only returning over. It's frankly unheard of. Yeah, it really is. It's phenomenal.
One of the things I think that's key for sales culture too is having good leaders. That's something that I've always been big on is, not promoting the wrong people. Sometimes you're like, oh, you look like you played, nothing against high school quarterbacks. Jacob was a high school quarterback.
Were you really?
Well, not really.
Like, okay.
You're a high school quarterback. Great. You're the new manager now. And it's like, that's a terrible way to make a leadership choice.
You've got a collared shirt on today?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. You're going places.
Yeah.
My litmus test for, whether you're going to be a good leader for us is, can you be more valuable helping those around you off the phone than you are on the phone closing deals? Because sometimes you get a top performer, they're just like a great salesperson. You say, hey, you're the manager now. And, they're like, great, I can check out. And I'm going to be at lunch, hour lunch every day,
Do what I say. Do what I say, not what I do.
I'll be on ESPN. I'll be, doing all these things that like aren't business related at all. And, that's really, I feel like where we've made a good, because there's nothing worse. If you got to put yourself back, go back to when you were like 16, 17, 20, 25 years old and the managers that you had at that age, like it's really easy to lose respect for your manager at that age when you're like, this person doesn't know what's going on. They tell me to do things that, they don't give me any real feedback. They're not helping me. They only care about themselves, like all those things. Making sure you don't put that person in that role because that's going to create turnover. Yeah. It's going to create frustration. It's going to create, bad work environment, so that's something I think that you can't overlook. And a lot of companies think, well, they look like a leader, they sound like a leader, make them a leader or whatever. And
usually those top performers, they're kind of like this weird outlier, right? Like they have a natural salesmanship and skills that made them that top performer. Often, though, they're just really good as an individual contributor. And sometimes what you need to just look at, and I think you've basically alluded to this, is who's going to help out, right? Who's going to be the team player? Who's going to be the one who's going to coach people naturally, not because they've been forced to do it, but just because they want to do it, right? And that's just kind of like their mindset. For sure.
And I think that you touched on this, like a bad leader can really, you can hate your job, but a good leader can like honestly change your life, right?
Yeah.
I think, in leadership, there's transactional leadership and there's transformational leadership. You've probably heard me mention this before, right? Transactional leadership is like, here's what you need to do, just do that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm your manager, so these are the things that I'm going to give you. And transformational leadership is, I'm going to help you be more. Like, I'm going to teach you skills that are going to help you grow as a person. And I think that's something that we try to do. We try to teach people how to communicate and how to handle objections and rejection and how to be mentally tough and how to succeed and be competitive and all of these things that ultimately in their life are going to help them be much better in the long run. They're skills that are really important that they may not have been exposed to prior, rather than just saying like, read the script, say these things, that's it, go home. It's like, no, let's help you become something more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people want to feel good about their job and what they've done for the community, what they've done for society. And you look at our business and it's a sales business and you're like, well, how can you do that? Well, at the very least, and there's more than this for sure, but at the very least, we can look at the people's lives that we've changed. And it's hundreds of people. We have over 400 people on the sales floor, right? And growing all the time. Every single one of these people are going to benefit from the culture that's been created, the leadership training that's been in place. Our training team as a whole is amazing, right? And they're going to leave Squeeze in a better place than they arrived every single time. And it'll change lives. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to do that and change that many lives. That's a lot of people that we influence all the time. I have a question about is because we've talked about all this and it's made sense and how it benefits Squeeze, but how does it benefit our clients? How do they directly benefit from this culture that you guys have created?
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking about how one of the common misnomers you hear in sales is that 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your people. And I think that that's been something that's probably been accepted for like way too long.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way. I think that you're missing out on some things if that's the result that you're getting. Maybe you're hiring the wrong people, you're training them wrong, you're incentivizing them wrong, like all that. So I think what this means for Squeeze clients is improved performance. If my mantra is like, for Nate, I want you to get 2 sales today, but Jacob gets 8 to 10 every day, and I say, hey, great, you got 2 sales today. I kind of think about how if Jacob would have talked to those same customers, you would have gotten 6 more sales.
It's not personal, Nate.
I know. I was like,
personal.
Take it easy. I get lots of sales.
It is what it is.
Okay, fine.
Nate's going to work on his sales activity.
Apparently,
That's
yeah.
right, our CRO over here.
I know.
This guy.
But yeah, you're right. We're a performance-based group, right? Like for our clients, we don't make money unless they're making money. And our performance means that they're performing, right? So if we have really, really good sales people, well, they're going to turn into more sales for you, right? Especially since there's not this static cost to them. You're only going to pay for something that's going to turn into revenue for you on your side as well. So there's always a direct benefit to our really good sales team and the amount of revenue output.
Yeah, and something that I talk about maybe too much with our clients is that when they start working with us, they are entrusting us with their assets, and when they are entrusting us to have direct interaction with their customer base. And I would not want somebody interacting with my customers that I did not trust, that couldn't leave them with an experience that was really representative of my brand values.
And that's another thing that we'll talk about in another episode, because this question comes up all the time, is kind of building brand, right? How do you build my brand through your process? We talk about a white glove approach. Every time we're talking to a potential client, we talk about we're going to protect your brand because it's white glove. Propensity to buy on the back end of the experience is much, much higher because we're talking to people in a way that they can trust what we're doing.
Yeah, we have to be stewards of their business, and we have to take that very seriously. You want to feel very confident that whoever is representing you is doing things the right way, and that the people that they're having conversations with are people who will be able to communicate with them in a way that, like you said, makes them more prone to transact on the other end, and leaves them with an experience where they're like, that was skillful and that was tactful, and overall a positive experience, which isn't always, I would venture to say that's maybe the minority of sales experiences that people have.
Absolutely it is.
And if we can increase the contact rate on the leads that we're calling or the people that we're talking to, increase the contact rate, increase the lead conversion rate, that's going to increase the sales transactions like you talked about. It's also going to lower the CPA. It's going to reduce the CPA for the campaign, the project, the brand that we're working with. And a lower CPA is something that everybody, no matter what business they're in, should be interested in.
Yeah. And to clarify, in case some people don't know, a CPA is a cost per acquisition. If you're in our industry, you probably know that already, but just in case
I'm
somebody's not familiar.
Throwing out terminology now, but
no, but that's good.
Thanks for adding that.
They should know, but just in case.
Yeah.
Well, just to shift gears a teeny bit, we've talked about all the good sides of what's happening at Squeeze for good reason. I think it would be important for people to realize it's not as easy as it sounds. There is a ton of effort. And I think Jacob's already smiling about this. We have all kinds of stories of, especially the early days. We still, every once in a while, we might get something coming out that's just a little bit of a crazy story. But to make sure you understand that there's a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of, frogs that got kissed along the way. What are some stories that you guys might have from maybe the early days or middle days or whatever it may be of what it's like to handle and manage a sales floor like this?
I have a funny story that I refer to it often when I'm talking with some of our leaders, where we had a leader who was over a floor in another location, and we always struggled to kind of get that sales floor working at the same rate as our other sales floor. And we had a leader there who, I call it candy jar leadership, high five leadership, where it was just, hey, have some candy, high five. Doesn't matter how you're doing. I don't know how you're doing. High five.
Yeah.
Great job, everybody. Good vibes, good feelings. And, everybody wants to work for someone that's nice and happy and complimentary and all those kinds of things. But there was never any kind of feedback or any kind of hey, work on these things. You're doing this, but if you did this, you'd be just that much better. And those are the technical things that make a leader really strong and good. And those things just weren't happening. And this leader went on a vacation to Hawaii, and he was gone. And I had no other option to just go work there. So I went there and I sat in his desk on the floor and just kind of observed. And I heard an agent on the phone doing his sales script approach. And I kept hearing him over and over again do this process. And I said, hey, hold on a second. Come over here. Let's talk about this. And I didn't reprimand him publicly. I wasn't rude. I was probably a little bit, I didn't devote enough time to it. I probably should have, in hindsight, taken more time to talk to him in a more, I don't know, probably in the way that he was used to being talked to by this other leader. Right. And I was probably just hey, chop, just hit the points. And he did not agree with me. He thought I was just a jerk and I didn't know what I was talking about. And how dare I go in there and criticize him? And I think it all comes back to the leadership he was used to was just telling him he always did a good job. So the minute you come in with some feedback or some course correction,
what?
It was what? Shocked. How dare you?
Well, I think that's
and then he ended up blowing up our Google reviews and all this kind of stuff. And
I remember that. Yeah. We something that Carson, we've got a few different sites, and something that Carson's always said, In-N-Out Burger, big fan. You go to In-N-Out anywhere, the burger tastes the same, right? You can get one here in Utah, you can go to California, it's just the same everywhere you go. And ultimately, that is due to their processes and the way that they hire and just the system that they have in place.
Well, and I think I know which floor you're alluding to, and I won't name names or say locations or whatever it was, but that's the same floor where we saw a guy playing on his Xbox while he was pitching people, I think, right? And we had to make some adjustments there to get it to the in and out that it needs to be, so to speak, and get it fixed.
Yeah, I think ensuring that across sites, across teams, across organizations, that there is mentorship and accessibility and support, and that the right people are in place. Those things are absolutely paramount to ensuring that the burger tastes the same across all sites, right? And it's interesting. Now I feel like we're much more equipped maybe to do that than we were before. With COVID, we all learned how to interact digitally a lot more than maybe we had prior. It's really easy for us now to hop on, Google calls, and we fly out and visit our sites frequently or drive out. But ensuring that those lines of communication are there, that those same principles are in place, that there's insight, skip levels, and things like that will help you keep a tab on the culture in those different sites.
Yeah, well, you can't take a day off running a sales floor, right? And you have to have the team in place to make sure, and the processes are in place, and everything's running the way it needs to, so that if you do go on vacation, the team is there to keep it running. Because if we're not there, if that sales floor is not going, money's not being made.
Yeah.
So you just can't check out ever.
That's a great point, and something that like our clients really need to consider that we work with is, if you have your own sales center that you're trying to own and operate or set up or ramp up or build, you can set it up and you can get it going, which is challenging in and of itself. But then to your point, doing it day in and day out, every day you start back over at zero. Like that is probably the biggest challenge that we have with our business, not only from like our agent mentality, but from our leadership and everything. Every day we pretty much start back at zero, and we do our best to we have some ways that we deal with that and help make that, not as painful, but it's something that just, you can't ever take your eye off of. So if you want to do it yourself, it's almost like a whole different business in and of itself that you have to run different from you're an XYZ type business or this product or service. Well, now, do you want to be an expert at that product and service, or do you want to be an expert at contact center and sales, or do you want to just rely on people that know what they're doing with
Econ 110, specialization brings efficiencies.
Absolutely.
Well, I think when you get to about 50 salespeople, especially, there's a mark there where it becomes its own business unit. And if you get to 100, scaling beyond that, 100 salespeople, making sure that they're trained and functioning properly and recruiting their and backfilling and everything else, that's a business all unto itself, like you said. It's a whole different ballgame. So scaling up and above that, all of a sudden now, if we have a lot of home service clients, for example, right? If you want to be, a solar company or bathtub remodel or whatever it is, you're going to all of a sudden lose a lot of your expertise in that because you're focusing so much on trying to run that sales floor. If you're not, you're going to spread yourself real thin, real fast, for sure.
Yeah. It's all we do, right?
Yeah. It's all we do. So we know how to do it pretty well, for sure.
Excellent.
Well,
I feel like we've covered a lot of great stuff.
I know.
Yeah.
We've covered too much great stuff. We've given away too many secrets here. No, but I agree, this is valuable. And thanks, guys. I think your expertise and your years of growing Squeeze is showing for sure in the content.
We have a great team, I think, and that's the key to sales culture, is having a great team. So if you can build that, then you can accomplish anything. So
yeah. Well, should we send it off, guys?
Send it off.
You've been watching The Juice, direct-to-consumer podcast. I'm Nate Clegg with Jacob Thorpe and Carson Poppinger.
Yeah. Please, if you have any questions, comments, leave them down below, and we'll get to them.
Remember to like and subscribe.
Thanks.